everybody. And firstly, thank you to Risk Resolve for hosting this webinar here in Melbourne. There's a few of us in the room here. I've got Claire Dallett, of course, hosting us. Got Tom from Carey, Richard Thornton from Belgravia. Have I said that right? Close enough. And Andrew McGuckian from the Department of OV. Okay, I wasn't quite sure where to reference that one, and I think we're waiting for one more, Nick, to arrive here. So a few people in the room with us, which is great, but I know we've had over 70 people register from all around Australia. So welcome, everybody, to webinar number 2. We're going to kick off with, firstly, of course, acknowledging country. We're here on Wurundjeri country here in Victoria, and I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present, and extend that acknowledgement to the lands on which all of us are right across Australia. I'd also like to introduce Nikki Hansen, who is co-hosting the webinar with me today. Nikki is NatCORR's project manager. She came on board in January. She's just 3 days a week, but her effort is more like 7 days a week. Nikki, do you want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri, so down in the deep south of Carrydale in Western Australia. Very, very pleased to be involved in the NatCORR project. And just a bit of background, I have worked in outdoor education, both in schools in Victoria, but spent the bulk of my life running my own, well, I'm saying mine, I've got to give Simon credit here as well, outdoor education business in Western Australia for 24 years at Explorers Adventure Learning. And a number of ex-employees are in this audience today, so hi everyone. And then 3 years with OEG, and now I'm in this role. So welcome, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Nikki. Nikki and I will tag team a little bit, and it's so great to have Nikki and her depth of experience on board with NatCORR, but also really fantastic to have Nikki located in Western Australia and to, really embrace the national spirit of this initiative. So in terms of today, what we're going to do is we'll just go over NatCORR purpose and principles again. It was covered in the first webinar, but a little bit of a touch point on those perhaps for people who weren't in webinar number 1. And then we want to take you through the feedback from the co-design webinar number 1 in November, and there's some really interesting insights from that. We'll talk about what we've been doing since then, and then introduce our planned program of activities in 4 hubs that's really come off the back of that survey feedback and input from the industry. We'll have an open-ended survey link while we talk through those that planned program activities and the feedback, because we'd really like to gather more feedback from you, but they're very much open-ended questions and an opportunity to contribute or not, and then cover off next steps. So that's the plan for today. The challenge is going to be staying on time, I think. So invite Nikki to give me the virtual kick under the table if I'm going too slow and need to push on, and vice versa. NatCORR purpose, is to help prepare outdoor practitioners and organisations more broadly to continue to safely operate in the face of hostile weather and conditions, knowing that climate change is having an impact on us. We're looking at, running a series of activities and programs to support the industry, furthering our knowledge, skills, and ensuring that we can all adapt and be prepared to operate as safely as possible. It's off the back of a $3.7 million federal grant that Outward Bound was successful in securing, and we're calling it a part of a $8 to $10 million project that includes a new building as a communal centre, as an opportunity for us to all network and gather in the ACT. It's a project that's initiated and led by Outward Bound, but in the spirit of being one that's here to all help secure the sector's future success. There are a set of guiding principles that we've put in place. Firstly, to be collaborative and generous. Secondly, to be inclusive. Thirdly, to be adaptive and to continue learning. We want to be pragmatic and efficient. We don't actually have a hell of a lot of money or indeed time, as we're all busy focused on actually delivering programs on the ground and so forth. So we want to make sure that we're really practical and effective. We're committed. We're committed to working together in the outdoors, and also committed to, I think, what is, a shared purpose amongst us all in terms of a passion for the benefits of being outdoors. We also want to make sure that we're earth-centred and that we recognise the value in the natural ecosystem. So I'll recap on co-design webinar number 1. We introduced 6 practice areas as a way of thinking about and framing what are the challenges that we're all facing, and proposed a series of potential goals and actions that NatCORR might undertake. And we're looking for feedback on a little spectrum tool. So that spectrum tool gave everybody the opportunity to rate how big a challenge some of the proposed questions were, whether or not they saw the goals and the actions as a priority or not. And the tool behind it ranked that between 0 and 100 in terms of aggregating it into a score, and we'll share those results today. I do want to say it's not a research exercise as such. It's actually a stakeholder engagement and sort of consulting tool. We had over 80 participants attend webinar number 1 live from right across Australia. And then since then, we had over 100 views on YouTube of the webinar recording. The survey remained open for a month, and we had lots of really good emails and follow-up conversations with people reaching out, which was really fantastic too. In terms of the survey ratings and what came up across the 6 areas, everything was rated high. So there was nothing that was rated sort of not a problem, sort of below that 50% mark. Monitoring flood, fire and weather conditions was rated as the lowest challenge, but I'm suspicious because it had a question about the role that social media plays in monitoring flood, weather and conditions that people didn't see as a problem, and I think that brought that rating down a little bit. And it's probably no surprise to everybody on the webinar today that insurance and financial planning was rated as a massive challenge with a mean score of 78. The other areas all around that 70% mark in terms of big challenge, and risk management and emergency response rated highly there at 74%. And I know that's something that as practitioners we all are always wanting to improve and be aware of where there are opportunities to improve. In terms of how people prioritise the goals and potential activities of NatCORR, and I've grouped them into the same one green line because they were always just 1% off. So monitoring flood, fire and weather conditions actually was rated as something that people see a need for action on, and otherwise everything else is right up there as well. So there wasn't an enormous amount of differentiation in the general sense of, yep, we'd like some of that, we'd like some of that, let's do that, we need to do that. So really interesting in terms of those the scale of the issue and the need for actions on this. What was quite interesting is that there was quite a bit of differentiation in terms of some of the commentary came through. The highest ranked challenges, when you go down to that next level of specific ones in risk management, scenario training, but often that lack of time and resources to actually get the scenario training in place, access to affordable insurance, and also access and how to navigate grants. And then remediating impact from disasters, the issue of workforce shortages, in particular at middle management, have actually impacted the sector's expertise and knowledge in that area. Also highly ranked challenges, mechanisms for cross-sector support in risk management and response. And also when an incident occurs, an individual organisation having limited access and support from experts across the sector, and that feeling of isolation that can result. Also, for outdoor providers, particularly small ones, how much capital reserves do we have, or access to capital or cash flows in emergency situations is an issue. And in that remediating impact, the training levels that we've got, or the access to training and skills in some of those remediation activities, was also highly ranked. In terms of the top priorities suggested for NatCORR, weather and conditions, preparing training materials, running PD programs on weather, fire, flood and changing environment conditions, and working with the BOM, land managers and disaster management and other agencies to improve ease of access and into areas and usefulness of local information and so forth. There was actually a lot of commentary about the need for improved relationships and communications. In risk and incident management, encouragement for support in developing scenario testing and training to support risk management and incident response, helping industry sector groups to develop a community of practice in this area, and also a desire for there to be a panel of experts and services that people can access if needed. Then in finance insurance, tracking and identifying issues and needs, facilitating efforts to access insurance, and improving knowledge and training in financial literacy and what sort of mechanisms might be available to you in times of crisis. So a lot of really good suggestions there. I will say there was also quite a lot of good commentary around whose role should this be amongst the players and stakeholders within the sector, and some really good feedback, both on what potentially NatCORR should do as well as shouldn't do. So, and the type of enabling activities needed, 80%. So a really big, strong call out that actually what we need is networking and collaboration. So really bringing stakeholders together and providing opportunities for collective problem solving and increasing support for people in times of crisis, and ensuring that we've got really good resources, training and PD programs. PD wins every time, can't beat training was one comment. And the other comment that I thought was pertinent was that programs need staff in decision-making roles to have the skills to adapt, but we put most of our energies goes into training and development at the entry level for staff. And also the comment that the other stuff is great, but the best resources have no value if people aren't talking to each other. So some really good commentary there. So valuable themes and questions that came out of it in terms of some of the rich commentary and input that was there was, an aware that there might be some resistance to change, and that inherent assumption that we can keep doing what we've always done. The impact of workforce shortages and the loss of experienced people in COVID raised as an issue. The impact of financial and reputational imperatives on decision making that we're all very aware of, I think, too, but, the way in which that's an interplay. Land manager relationship issues with communication, decision-making, and with different jurisdictions. And there was a lot of commentary in Queensland about concerns of communication and challenges with land managers there. The challenge of the importance of local and place-based knowledge and response versus the need for collaboration at that national level. Where's the sweet spot? What bit should be in what part or place? how best to incorporate Indigenous voice and practice into what we're doing, and the ecosystem more broadly around climate change. There were highlighted comments around differences between outdoor providers, schools and community organisations with respect to both compliance requirements and practices. And the question was raised as to whether NatCORR could play a role in the review of the AAAS. So a number of themes that came out in the commentary as well. There was a healthy level of difference of opinion, and all knowing our sector, and I'm looking around the room too with some nods going on here. Of course, there's always going to be a difference of opinion and a healthy level of critique, and I think that's a really good sign that people are engaging. So since then, Nikki, what have we been doing?
We've been busy. So we've had the project launch officially by Beau Miles back in December. I got a job and started in January. We've actually got our website up now. It's live. Our first newsletter went out a week ago, and we've now got the OCA and the OEA both on board as sector engagement partners. So we really value that partnership, and we've established a NatCORR working group for this year, and we've started planning our program of work. So a bit more about that working group. This is a precursor to our formal NatCORR advisory board. So this group has been put together. You can see the names of the people there, and we really value and appreciate their time that they're going to give us over this year. It is then going to morph into the NatCORR advisory board, which really we want a broad representation on that. So within that, we'll have subcommittees, which will look at the 4 different hubs that we're going to be focused on. They'll be working under our NatCORR advisory board charter, and there is a formal reporting mechanism within the outward bound governance model. So as we move through this survey, you'll actually have an opportunity to register your interest in being part of that advisory board.
Or indeed subcommittee hubs too.
Yes, absolutely. So the 4 hubs, as we've sort of seen here, we've narrowed down from 10 to 6 to 4. And really what we want to do today is get your feedback on what content we put into these areas, content, but also resources and training. So what we are going to do, as you'll see, we will have that QR code coming up in another slide right there. So if you wouldn't mind just using your phone just to, you know what to do, camera on, onto there. It's very, very short. It's only 5 questions. They are open-ended, as Lauren pointed out. What it's really asking for is your comments on these hubs, the resources that we should have in them, but also if you're all coming from varied backgrounds and experiences, what we'd love is your suggestions around other people we should be talking to, other organisations we should be talking to, resources you might already be using yourself that you're happy to share. Here you can also identify risks and other considerations we might not have taken into account. Contribute your ideas. There's no such thing as a silly idea. And this is also where you get the chance to express interest in being involved in the advisory board or a subcommittee of that. Fantastic. And this survey, because this recording will go out, the link will be sent to everyone. This survey will remain open until the end of April. So if there's anyone else you feel would benefit from contributing to this, please pass it on.
So do you think that's enough time for, have we got a few thumbs up and waves if people have managed to get it? I think I've got somebody still in the room here trying to get on. Have you guys made it work?
Yep.
Fantastic. So if you do miss it, it will be on the recording, so you can do it at a later date.
You got it? No. Okay. Oh yeah. Jemmy, are you maybe able to email the link to the QR code in the chat? I think we emailed it to you. So we'll get it up there if you're still having problems getting onto the QR code. So what we'll do now is, in introducing each of the hubs, is flick you through a series of quotes that we took from the last survey to show you some of the landscape of input in terms of the challenges and the needs. And I'm not going to read all of these out. I'm just going to allow you to read them on screen. Oh, I might have just clicked that one too fast. Sorry. So then in terms of needs, I'm not sure how I'm going with timing for people's reading speed, but I'll push through. So we basically took the input from that and had a number of conversations and are reflecting a bit with the working group on what sort of activities might be appropriate. Nikki, do you want to talk through this one, what we're thinking around weather, environment and conditions? You're on mute.
Yep, sorry about that. Okay, so second half of this year, we really wanted to get a better understanding of what current resources and tools people are using in the sector to inform your decisions based on weather and environmental conditions. Stakeholder mapping to identify players within local, state and national contexts, and just start to identify good practice learning and issues, where our gaps and needs are, and then recommend some improvements or start to fill that space with training. So again, by 2024, we want to have a series of weather and conditionals PD workshops in partnerships with key experts and stakeholders on offer for you guys.
So our thinking around this is that we really need that sort of review to actually help inform the PD and so forth. But we think it will also be a useful piece of information too, in terms of engaging with some of those the Bureau of Meteorology and other agencies within the ecosystem to help sort of present, well, this is what the sector's position in terms of our current practice. And that bit might be something that then the industry associations can take forward. So we'd welcome your comments in the survey, you know, whether or not you think this is a good idea, hitting the sweet spot, things that you might resources or people that you think would be integral for participation in this area. So then moving on to the second hub, risk management and incident response in the context of sort of disaster and climate change impact. Some of the challenges, quotes.
Oh, hang on. I've just
had a moment. Oh, guess what that was? That was PowerPoint crashing.
Oh, no.
It's all right. It'll come back up.
It's an emergency.
Had a big afternoon, my PowerPoint. Tendency to put too many, put lots of pictures in it. I've done a new computer. That's a nice one. Okay, am I still on screen share?
You're on screen share, so we've got that. We're on slide 1. So
Okay, so
if
I
you
just
go
need to
forward
flick
through
back
to
my
18,
spot.
18 we're at. Just giving you guys some time to fill in the survey. Yep.
My computer's whirring. It's off. It's done way too much work. But then in relation to needs, but then taking that input, Nikki, do you want to talk us through this?
Sure. So this is where it gets exciting, because what we have already got confirmed in our calendar is in July this year, we're going to be running a national incident response workshop, so 2 per state across 5 states in Australia. We're going to talk in more detail about that later, but just have that on your radar. Got some fantastic presenters with Debbie Ango, Claire Dallett, and also Sonia Zabeski as a media trainer. So at the moment, Uploads needs a home. So there is a consultation process that is happening at the moment, and whether NatCORR is the right home for it. That's what's being decided, but that's ongoing, and we'll keep you posted on that too. What we're also doing this year is going to be really collating that information, research, and expertise for sharing via our hubs on the website, specifically in the Risk Management and Incident Response Hub. And also just looking in 2024, considering those potential models for advisory services and incident response support. So this was a big one that came up out of the survey, that people just wanted somewhere to go to when a crisis happens that affects their business and their livelihood directly, just a touch point that they can go to put them directly in touch with someone who has expertise in this area.
Thanks, Nikki. So, there are a number of areas here where it's sort of like, yep, it's clear, it's straightforward. Let's get cracking on some activities that'll provide support, and other ones where we're aware, there's a need for consideration or some work to be done in terms of what is the right model and place for that activity to occur. We're very aware of the fact that, we don't want to do everything or bite off more than we can chew, is probably what I'd say too. So some good work to sort of have some conversations about what's right and where. This next hub, impact and mitigation, and it is really sort of disaster impact and in many ways land access mitigation. You'll see in a minute the screen gets really full of the quotes, and I probably could have done 2 or 3 pages on each of these. And there was a lot of different perspectives coming into play in terms of the challenge that I think reflected differences across the sector in terms of both whether or not we've already been impacted or not, whether or not you're somebody who's a land manager, or whether or not it's accessing purely national parks and so forth, and a lot of different considerations, perspectives about whose job is this anyway? Is it land managers? It's industry associations? Is it the sectors? Is it own individual organisations? So there is a lot of different perspectives in this one. So you can see there's also evidence of this tension that we all know that exists around, care for the ecosystem and environmental sustainability, with our eagerness to actually continue to operate within the natural environment. In terms of needs, Oh,
I know,
I've just crashed again.
just doesn't like those
Doesn't like too many
comments, I think.
comments.
It's okay.
All right, people. Gives you time to write some
okay.
comments in your survey.
I can just talk though about the impact and mitigation proposed activities, if you like. So really what we're going to be doing for the second half of this year is having a bit of a scoping exercise to map our stakeholders and discuss the respective roles of the industry associations, the land managers and outdoor practitioners, and understand the status of the issues in the local, the different jurisdictions. Because again, as Lauren mentioned before, there was a lot of commentary in those survey responses about Southeast Queensland in particular, and the difficulty with communication with land managers. If you're going to be using that area, we really want to change that, because we all know that we need those relationships with our land managers to be strong and healthy when we are working in those areas, and just look at ways that we can make a difference. So then 2024, we sort of look at options for improved access to resources, skills and training for practitioners in this area. Do you want to add anything there, Lauren?
No, I probably just want to put a little bit of a confession that this one's the loosest in terms of there's a bit of consultancy speak on this slide. Because of because of the complexity, the diversity of opinions and roles and players in it. I think it's difficult for us to sort of like lean in immediately to say, yep, this is specifically what NatCORR should do, which is why, a little bit more thinking time and, some work associated with, mapping the stakeholders and understanding the evolving disaster management ecosystem is actually really important in this space. But it's probably one too where really interested in people's feedback. So tippy tappy away on that survey on this one. So then moving on to the last one, economic and social resilience. In essence, I think everybody's probably aware that this is all about insurance and financial literacy or capabilities or financial readiness. Some pretty strong opinions here in terms of the, all of our lived experience on the challenge in the insurance space. And one thing in chatting with Laurie, with the working group, we're aware that there are differences around property insurance and public liability insurance, but they both remain, they're both very much a challenge. And of course, there's some interdependencies associated with the two of them and our capabilities in navigating. But then on to needs, and I just want to share lived experience. This photo is actually of the bushfires from our Outward Bound base on the Snowy River in Buchan before they went through that whole area that night back in December 31, 2019. And it's kind of interesting, this one, and, you know, you reflect at different moments when reading through the commentary and people's different lived experiences, even on that mitigation and navigating in insurance, and people saying, oh, land managers, it's not our responsibility. And in this instance, is you know, we are land managers in this space, but you know what's involved in actually dealing with compost toilets when they've gone up in flames and melted, both with respect to dealing with the aftermath and the mess and the biosecurity, gaining evidence of the fact that something's happened to them, and incorporating up all of those expenses into an insurance claim. You know, a sort of experiences that they're the types of things that we're all potentially going to have to deal with. And there are skills and capabilities here that can be shared and trained and navigated in a simpler way. So I just wanted to share that experience as I look at that, what could be a lovely sunset glow, but isn't.
Yeah, so lots of questions to be answered there. And the second half of this year, again, we want to do a bit of a needs assessment survey just to get data on what the insurance needs and issues are for the sector, the level of financial resilience in preparation for potential business disruption. So I suppose that we can have the confidence in being able to follow up on that, as Lauren spoke about before, but also for pursuing insurance claims, loans, grants in the time of crisis. So post it's happened and you need to be able to keep going. What have you got access to and how do you do it? Capacity for investment and growth. And 2024, we want to, again, put some PD workshops in place to specifically address building financial literacy and resilience, and I suppose just workshop how to pursue things like insurance claims and grants, loans, etc. The ongoing stuff is supporting industry associations with information resources for political engagement and collaboration. And did you want to elaborate at all on that, Lauren? Last point in particular.
Yeah, I think, you know, it is good for us to make sure that we differentiate and don't duplicate the role of NatCORR and the industry associations. Of course, we know a lot of the good work that the industry associations are state-based, and each state has some different nuances as to what they're doing and their focus and so forth. And in some areas is probably an opportunity for conversations around that sharing at a national level, as well as what NatCORR does at a national level too. But, you know, we're talking actively to the industry associations to ensure that we're in the sweet spot of where we can pragmatically add value. I think that first element is once again making sure that we're gathering the needs and the materials to be prepared for professional development that is actually going to be worthwhile and hit the spot too. So there's a little bit of prep work that is going to need to go into the development of professional development programs. And I think the other thing that's sort of evolving is, we're probably looking at professional development for mid-level practitioners and organisations at that leadership level rather than entry level. We're more than happy to sort of like work with others who are in that entry-level training space, and had a great chat with Andy Watts about that the other day too. So, making sure that there is alignment and so forth. But that's where I think we're thinking probably the sweet spot of need is going to be. But, tippy-tappy away on the survey and let us know your thoughts, or, can contribute in what way you can. So then other considerations, we've sort of got a conversation that in place. People have posed the question of a potential role in supporting a review of the AAAS in 2024, and I think that's, there's got to be more conversations in terms of, what might be needed. I think there's sort of a sense of, could we help support some of the funding for that work? We're not anticipating leading the work, but we could potentially play a role, particularly around the area of sort of, risk and climate change, and helping collate some of that. As I mentioned, good conversation with Andy Watts from OEG about potential alignment of that workforce training grant around elements of risk mitigation in some of those practical areas that I think exist in various spots within VET, but not necessarily at the moment for outdoor practitioners. So that's just a conversation that's been started. And there's also at Outward Bound, where we've got really good Indigenous engagement at our governance level about, is there an opportunity for us potentially to support Indigenous outdoor practitioners and in organisations to ensure that they're connected to climate risk management support as well. So that's something that we'll put a bit more thought into it. But otherwise, we're very aware that we need more engagement to align and leverage other disaster and risk management initiatives, both within and outside the outdoors sector. There is a lot of work that's sort of going on this space at the moment. So ensuring that we're connected into that ecosystem, and that we're leveraging other people's work as well as contributing our own, and ensuring that we can tap into that is really important for us. Next steps, Nikki, do you want to take us through this?
Sure. Okay. So like we mentioned before, this webinar survey is going to be open till the end of April. So we're going to get the results from that, which will be fantastic. See what you've all got to say this time round, because as you can see from the quality of the comments that we've had on the screens before, it's stuff that we've read and read and read, and we really, really appreciate your input. We also just got to continue to refine and develop the activities that we've got planned. We're also working on just enhancing our NatCORR resourcing. We want to expand stakeholder engagement, lots of different ways that we're going about that. And then also we want to promote this national incident response workshops that we have across the 5 states. And on that next slide, actually, we've got a little bit more information that I'll give you now. So you can start putting some provisions in your calendar. It is a great PD opportunity. The quality of the presenters we've got is first and foremost. We've got Deborah Yango from Alaska, who is the owner and operator of Safety Ed. The bulk of her work is around what happens to the brain under stress and in those crisis situations, and how it actually affects your responses in those situations. Obviously, Dr. Claire Dallett from Risk Resolve. We're always happy to work with Claire, and also Sonia Zaveski, who's going to be involved with the workshop too, as a media trainer. So things I wanted to let you know about here was just really what they're about and the differentiation between the two workshops. So also to, I suppose, say that these are in direct response to what you guys had asked for in that survey before. So we're hoping the uptake on this will be really healthy. Identify and respond, to those critical incident thresholds is going to be really what both of these workshops will address, as well as understanding those impacts of extreme stress on the brain. But also recognition and implementation of a really effective field critical response plan. What you will come away with, which is that thing you want in your hand that you can actually put into place in your own workplace, is a tailored template to be able to design and implement scenarios back in your own workplace. So that's what both workshops will do. The first workshop they've been divided into two to address different needs of those target audiences. So really the workshop 1 is targeted at the middle management, program coordinators, outdoor ed teachers, camp organisers, university lecturers. The second one is really the senior management level, so organisational leaders, your principals, deputy principals, peak body leaders, board members, people who are having to deal with those external audiences, apart from just dealing with the crisis itself. So that does include the media training with Sonia. And you really walk away from that with that increased capacity to deal with and respond to those multiple audiences you're dealing with, and really looking at your organisation's strengths, and also, as we all need, those areas for improvement. So there will be more information coming out about these workshops, but just so you know, that is Melbourne, Sydney, Canberra, Perth and Brisbane. Deb only has limited time in Australia, so this is what we could pack in the month of July. But also what you need to know is that the July 12th, the first workshop in Victoria, is actually a Outdoors Victoria conference workshop. And so as a result, the booking is through Outdoors Victoria, and their early bird information will be coming through to you on the 3rd of April. So if you'd like to book on that one, it's through Outdoors Victoria, but the rest is through NatCORR, and those links and information will be coming to you very soon.
Thanks, Nikki. So NatCORR's sponsoring these workshops. They are still fee for attendance, but at a reduced rate. And we're also aware, those contributions help the business model such that NatCORR can do more and more. And we want to make sure that the people have got skin in the game too, in terms of contributing to their attendance, but they're at very reasonable rates, and they should be, hopefully, from what people are saying, hitting the spot in terms of needs. So at 4:27, where I've got to the end of the program today, which is kind of a miracle, even with a couple of IT spots. It says any questions, but given we've got 70 people or so, actually I can't see the number, but a lot of people on board, we won't take, and 2 minutes to go, we won't take questions live, but please feel free to put questions into the survey, and with you know, the name in your organisation, we should be able to address surveys, address questions either collectively in a frequently asked question response on, or indeed, you know, have to get back to people individually. So I just want to say thank you, because as you can see, most of the content today was generated by the people who are on the other end of the line here. And I think it really is testament to the amount that the contributions we've had have been rich, wide-ranging and really valuable. So a big thank you to everybody for your support and your participation. We will keep soldiering on, and yeah, we'll look to another webinar towards the end of the year as another touch basis on where we're at. Any closing comments from you, Nikki, at 4:29?
No, thanks everyone. We
4:29
really,
there, at
really
1:30,
appreciate
1:29.
really appreciate you being here and your continued input and support.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of the day.
See ya. Bye.